Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm ProbablyAwake, and today I'm taking a look at the Atom Audio T7Vs, and I'm going to go ahead and compare them to my HS8s. Of course, there is a size difference, so keep that in mind when we compare them at the end of the video, but I'm going to go over my general thoughts of them, tell you how I like them, and then at the end of the video, you'll see that comparison of them side by side. So the Atom Audios, I've used them and I've listened to them before. I've used the T7Vs and the T8Vs as well. Both about the same response from me. I didn't care for them the first time I listened to them, and I listened to them probably about a year ago or so extensively, so I have a pretty general idea of how each sound. However, I went ahead and I got the T7Vs back in my little studio area here. I went ahead and took out my HS7s for the time being so I could listen to the T7Vs, really get an idea of how they sound, and give my feedback to you guys. So overall, I've been listening to them for probably about 6 hours or so, just kind of on and off, and these are my overall thoughts. All of the precondition or all of the things that I'm comparing them to are going to be to the HS7s and HS8s, so if something doesn't sound quite right, or if you're coming from a different pair of monitors, just keep in mind that I'm mostly comparing them to the HS7s, which are probably my favorite monitors. So right off the bat, I went ahead and dialed in the Atom Audios to fit my space. I'll put the speaker settings right here or over here somewhere so you can see exactly what they are. It's basically just flat, and I pumped up the level a little bit so the audio quality or level would be about the same as the HS8, so when I was going back and forth I could get a good sound representation. Naturally, these speakers are 7 inches. I think it's a 6.5 or 7-inch cone, and then it has that ribbon style tweeter, which you either love it or hate it. I'm kind of in the middle on if I like it or not. I'm really used to the cone on the YAMAHA, which is just a regular cone, so keep that in mind. These T7Vs, after I kind of dialed them in, they sound pretty flat. And off the gate, I don't remember them sounding like that because the time that I spent with them, they had been dialed into a different studio space. So the listening experience I had in them, I experienced a lot of high-end kind of sizzle that I wasn't really comfortable with. It kind of bugged my ears. It's like one frequency that these ribbon tweeters play at, it's like a sine wave just directly into your ear that doesn't fit quite right, in my opinion. I couldn't quite get used to it, and I still do hear it a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as it was when I was listening back to these about a year ago. So getting into how they sound, I think they sound pretty good. Again, about a year ago when I was listening to these, I wasn't really too fond of them. I'm just going to be honest, I didn't think they sounded great. I was expecting more from this Atom Audio brand, this German company that was supposedly really good at creating speakers, but compared to a speaker, the HS7, that only costed like $30 or $40 more per speaker, I wasn't blown away by these Atoms, especially like the first time you hear them. I feel like when you hear a speaker and if you like it the first time, you're pretty blown away. With these, I just really wasn't pleased with them the first time I listened to them. When I released my song Voicemail about a year ago, I mixed it and I mastered it on the T8Vs or TV8s. I forget the exact pronunciation or the exact abbreviation. And I couldn't get it quite right till I got home and I fixed it on my HS7s. So keep that in mind. Again, the HS7s are good speakers and I really like them. I've been using them a lot, but these T7Vs and the T8Vs, when I was just trying to mix on them for that song, I couldn't quite get it right. There's just something about the audio signal in the Atoms that's just super flat, so it's hard for me to gauge exactly where everything is in the mix. Fast forward about a year, again, I dialed in these settings, and I was able to get them to a point where I liked them a lot more. So I've been sitting here for a couple hours just A-Bing songs, pop punk songs, metal songs, some songs that I'm working on, some EDM songs, and just trying to figure out how to best summarize how these speakers and where I would kind of categorize them in the speakers that I've listened to. And I want to say that they've definitely went up in my rating. Again, I'm still not 100% on board with them, but I think they are a good pair for the money. But I think if I'd have to rate them, I think they're just below the HS7s. And of course, they don't compare to the Frontiers. They don't really compare to the HS8s because they're smaller. And I don't even think the T8Vs compare to the HS8s either. Overall, with this, as I'm listening to it today, it has a very flat frequency response. The high end where I'm expecting a little bit more sizzle like I did with the HS7s or even the HS8s, that's kind of toned down. And they sound very, very mono, if that makes sense. They sound very I don't want to say bad, maybe they purposely sound bad, but they just sound very in the middle. So even as far spaced as I have these monitors out, I have them directly with my ear level and directly pointed at my ears, kind of in that triangle. I have, foam behind them absorbing any of those boomy frequencies. They just sound very flat, very in the middle. There's not really any stereo width. I think if you're mixing on these, it'd be hard to kind of go in and pick out where things are in the mix in comparison to the HS7s or HS8s. Granted, they are a smaller speaker, so if you went with the T8V, it would be a little bit better. However, that's my experience with them. Overall, I think I'd probably give these like I feel bad saying a 6.5 out of 10, but probably about a 6.5 out of 10. Again, I think I would go for the HS7s over these versus the T7Vs. However, it depends on what your budget is. Maybe you're thinking about these or you're thinking about the A7Xs. You want to go up the extra tier. It's going to be up to you in that and depending on how you like them. However, this is my opinion. And I would say if you can, just go listen to them. Go to Guitar Center, or if you're close to Sweetwater or some type of audio demo place that you can see how these speakers sound in person, go give them a try. See how they sound in comparison to regular tweeters or the ribbon tweeters, or how the cone might sound in comparison. The cone is a little bit different material than the HS7 cone is. So really go in and see what you think. But for me, I think the Yamahas are still a little bit better than the Atoms in this price category. So those are my opinions. Let's go ahead and get into the sound playback so you can hear how they sound in comparison to the HS8s. All it is just this Shure SM7B. I cranked the gain for the SM7B pretty low so you can get a pretty good idea of how the speakers sound, and it's running through an Apollo interface, and I just placed the SM7B kind of in the middle of the monitors so you can get a kind of decent representation of how it would sound where my ear is placed in the mix. Of course, it's not going to be as great as if you were here, of course, but it'll give you an idea. So let's get into that. So that's how they sound in comparison to the HS8s. I hope this gives you a pretty good idea of how they sound if you're thinking about buying them. Again, not for me, but I would say go listen to them, see how they sound. And of course, I'm pretty biased because I really like the Yamahas. Again, with all this being said, I hope this helps you. Thank you for watching. Leave a like on the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again on the next video.